We are continuing the series called Let's Face It. And in this series, we want to ask and answer some of the big questions of life, right? And so oftentimes we don't want to think about those questions, but we've been talking about how we intuitively have these answers in our hearts, right? We had the image of a backpack where when things are difficult, we reach out to this imaginary backpack we carry, and in the backpack, we have these answers, and these answers are formed by our experiences in life, our hurts in life, our expectations, our disappointments, how we are raised, our culture, all of that informs a certain way we look at the world, we look at people, we kind of look at life. So we reach into the backpack for answers when things are difficult, when we face loss, when we face trials or sickness or death, failure, right? We reach into the backpack. So in this series, we want to gently give you an opportunity to kind of think about what's in the backpack. What is this that's forming your answers for life? And does that help you, right? When you encounter some of these challenges in life, how does this help you, right? And so we want to gently help you kind of figure out what's in your backpack. And hopefully this series, we want to introduce what does the Bible have to say, and invite you to consider what God has to say about some of these things. And that could be something that can profoundly change your life. So this morning, we're looking at the question of suffering. We've talked about the question of origin. We've talked about the question of identity, meaning. We're going to be talking about suffering today. And the last two ones are morality, right? How do you know what is right and wrong? And lastly, destiny. Where do we go after we die, right? And so today, this morning, we're looking at why is there suffering in this world? Right now, suffering, it's a universal problem, right? And we come to suffering. We all face this. There is nobody who's exempt from suffering. Nobody is spared. You may consider yourself good or bad, cruel or kind, rich or poor. All of us suffer in some way, right? We have suffering. It is indiscriminate, it's universal, it's random, sometimes it's confusing, oftentimes it's unexpected, it is unpredictable, right? Suffering comes in the form of sickness, death, loss, grief, injustice, violence, abuse, natural calamities, all kinds of things, right? And so we all understand that the scope of suffering, and we've all been inflicted by that. And oftentimes suffering is not just individual, it is also social, right? It is also national, and it's corporate, it's both individual and corporate. And oftentimes suffering leaves us confused. We don't have answers. We don't have answers. I remember when the tsunami happened back in, I want to say 2002 or 4, right? Back then, I mean, people didn't understand. 2 lakhs of people died. Can you imagine? It's 2 lakhs, right? India, Sri Lanka, Indonesia, right? 2 lakhs of people. Right, I remember like in Chennai, people would go to the beach, right? In the morning, you have all these elderly and the retired people, all the people who like to jog and fitness, all of them love to go to the beach, right? In the morning, they like to run and walk, and they have friends, and there's places you can eat. And so the early morning, you have a lot of people who will be walking along the shore, right? The beach. And at this particular morning, the water receded in. And people are looking, and they're intrigued. And everybody went in to see what's happening, right? And the waves came and just took them away. How do you make sense of this? What is this? Where do you put this? Right? We've all watched and seen, and we have friends who've gone through some of these calamities and wars and violence and against nations and tribes and people, and we see the devastation of all of this, and like the suffering that it creates. And sometimes it's painful because we see it is because of the negligence of people too, evil people, wicked people. Right, I remember even again back in the city in Chennai, there was a time when the flood, there was an intense flood recently, right? There was heavy rain, and the floods were increasing overnight. It was actually in the middle of the night. Nobody knew, right? The flood water is increasing. Everybody's sleeping, right? And the water in the reservoir is going up, and immediately they said you got to release the water, otherwise it will break and it will flood the city. People will die, right? And they need permission to release the water. Middle of the night, 2 o'clock in the middle of the night. And later they realized how the people in charge of that did not do it. Why? They were scared of the chief minister. They didn't want to wake up the chief minister. Hundreds of people died, right? How do you make sense of this? How do you make sense of this? Nobody's immune, right? If you feel like you have good health and you're going to live long and you're going to take care of your health, and no, that's the way you're going to handle all these things. No, you may live long and live a good life and a long life, but be sure that you're going to be burying other people. And that's going to make you full of grief and sorrow. So nobody's exempt from suffering. Suffering has a weight. It attacks, right? It attacks. It attacks your identity. It takes away your meaning. When you go through suffering, it takes away your meaning. It takes away the purpose for life and the significance of life. What is the point of all these things? So this morning, with that, we're going to think through this. We are not going to solve it for you, right? It's a 30, 35-minute kind of conversation. I'm going to talk mostly the whole time. But this is we're gonna just touch the contours of it, right? What is it to make sense of it? And as we make sense of it, I'm gonna talk about three things, right? One, I'm gonna talk about what problems suffering brings, and how does the world cope with it, right? And hopefully you will find yourself in one of those things. Maybe you can look into your backpack and see how do you cope with some of these things. How do you make sense? And I want to present what Jesus offers to us. All right. Firstly, from 2 Corinthians chapter 4, 7 to 18. Firstly, what problems suffering brings, right? What suffering does. Now, what it does is it creates two unique problems. It creates an intellectual problem and an emotional problem, right? Firstly, intellectual, right? It creates a intellectual problem. Suffering and evil is one of the biggest reasons why people don't believe in God. People walk away from God, walk away from faith. Right? It is the biggest reason, right? Yeah, so here is the reason. The reasoning is, if there is a God and if He is good and if He is powerful, why is there suffering? Why is there evil in the world? Okay? If He is good, if there is a God and He is good, why does He allow it? He shouldn't allow it. If He is powerful, why doesn't He end it? He should be able to end it. If He is just, why does the innocent suffer? And so it's an intellectual problem. So people are unable to reconcile this idea that there is a God who is good and powerful and just in the midst of suffering. So they look at suffering and evil, and therefore they conclude there is no God. He's either not good, or He's not powerful, or He's not just. Right? It's a common intellectual problem. It creates this huge problem intellectually for us. We are not able to reconcile these ideas. And how do we overcome this? Right? And people typically kind of think about this, and one of the ways they overcome, one is simply they reject God. They reject God. They look at this argument, the intellectual problem, and they say, well, these two things doesn't reconcile. There is no reason why a good and powerful and just God can allow suffering. And because suffering is in the world, we cannot reconcile this fact. So there must not be a God. So when they encounter suffering, when they encounter evil in the world, they reject God. That is the easiest way to kind of deal with this, right? There is no God. There is no God. But we will see, right? I mean, briefly, you will understand. Well, when you reject God, He doesn't take away the problem of suffering. It doesn't give you a reason, right? It doesn't help you understand why this. It just we kind of said that, no, there is no God, but it doesn't really solve or help us in any way. The second reason, the second way people kind of think about this intellectually is, well, maybe God is punishing us, right? We are sinners. We've sinned against God. Maybe we've done bad things, and suffering is a form of punishment, right? In India, it's a very common thing. We hold this very dearly. This view, suffering is a punishment from God. But then the question is, no, it is often indiscriminate. Good people suffer. Sometimes your suffering is not proportionate to what you've done, right? It's not proportional. So it doesn't make sense. If it is a punishment, what have I done? Right? It seems random. It seems arbitrary. Good people suffer. Evil seems to prosper. Right? So this idea that God is punishing me doesn't really fit into the suffering that we see in the world. I mean, in the tsunami, who is God punishing? What is this kind of punishment is this? So that intellectual reason doesn't fit. It doesn't fit. So it is a problem, right? The third way people think about this is to solve the intellectual problem is they talk about free will, right? We talk about how no, God created human beings to be to have free will. We are not robots, so which means we have the choice to choose good and choose bad, to do good or do evil. And for God, free will is most important. It's a most important thing. Otherwise, we'll become robots. So for the sake of free will, God took the chance of making you even do evil. And some hold that. And free will is true. The Bible talks about we have free will. But intellectually, it doesn't make sense, because if I have my children and I'm about to cross the Delhi traffic, and I tell my kids, don't run into the street, right? There's too much traffic, don't run into the street. And suddenly one of my child wants to run into the traffic. And the car is coming and about to crash them. And as a parent, I'm standing here and I'm like, well, Sanjay, I told you, but because you have free will, I'm going to just let it play out, right? I don't want to infringe on your free will, right? So I'm going to let him. Is that what we do? No, no. Free will is not the most important thing. I will step in. I'm going to grab him, give him a couple of slaps, and bring him back here, right? I'm going to say no. And I imagine my kid grows up and he's 25 and he's looking back. He's not going to be thinking, Daddy, you infringed on my free will. When I was 5, I remember vividly, you took me away. That was my free will, right? No, he's not going to think like that. So I'm actually telling you, no, these arguments to kind of somehow think that God is okay. No, it's not. It's not. No. Free will is not the biggest thing. That's not the reason why suffering is in the world. So Ranjit, then intellectually, why does God allow suffering? Why does God allow suffering? The answer is, we don't know. We don't know, right? You can leave. That's it. The summer is done. Ranjit, I thought I came here because I'll know why. No, we don't know. We don't know. And this is why I want to gently nudge you, because this is philosophers who've talked about it, thought about it, and Alvin Plantinga, he talks about this, right? And he is saying how just because, and this is why we reject God. We reject God because we think there is no reason. I can't think of a reason why God would allow suffering. There is no reason. I can't see any reason why the tsunami will happen. I can't see any reason why wars are happening. I don't see any. Why would God allow these things? And because I don't see a reason, I reject God. And that's why philosophers come and say, no, just because you don't see a reason doesn't mean there is no reason. It's just that you don't know the reason. Right? And the Bible is very clear. The Bible does not give us a reason. The Bible says no. That's not for you to know. So it creates an intellectual problem. It creates an intellectual problem. It also creates an emotional problem, right? It creates an emotional problem. And this is why you have to understand the problem of evil and suffering is not just rational, intellectual. It's very personal, right? It is very emotional. So please, and I want you to be very careful, right? I know we can talk about it theologically, we can talk about it intellectually, and of course this is a format where I'm actually giving you some of the ways to think about these things, but don't think that this sermon is going to help somebody, comfort somebody who's suffering. Don't send this sermon to them. Don't think here, hey, you're going through a lot of pain, here, listen to this sermon. No, they will hate you, they will hate me, they will hate the church. This is not the forum, right? It is personal, it is personal, it is emotional for people. It's not just intellectual. We think somehow if I know the reason, my suffering will be fine. No, it will not be fine. Right? It creates an emotional problem. The emotional question that it creates is, how can I trust this God? If He's going to allow this in my life, how can I trust Him? How can I rely on Him? It's a real problem. It's a real emotional problem. The things that suffering brings in, it robs your joy, it robs your peace, it robs your hope. It makes you restless. It makes you frantic. It makes you anxious. You don't want to suffer. There is something on the inside that is restless when we go through suffering. We are not able to make sense of life. We lose a sense of meaning and purpose. It makes us restless on the inside. We don't see the point of these things, right? So we are going through life in a restless, frantic, anxious manner. Not only that, suffering makes you angry and bitter. You become angry with people, you blame others, society, God. You are always angry. You're working, you're living in this world angry and bitter, unhappy, constantly blaming somebody else. The suffering does that to you. It does that to you. Not only restless, not only angry and bitter. Suffering in some way turns you inward. You begin to hate yourself. Anger can be projected outside, but if anger is projected on the inside, it becomes depression. You hate yourself. Why? Because you blame yourself. You feel like maybe I did something wrong. Maybe I'm not good enough. And so you project the anger inside, and it makes you depressed. You're full of self pity and self hatred, and it leads you to terrible and dangerous choices and addictions and all of those things. Lastly, it leaves you deeply cynical, right? You lose hope, you're negative, you're in despair, you isolate yourself, you are suspicious of people, you cannot love, you cannot put yourself out there. Why? Because you are only focused on inside, right? And it makes you cynical about life. And we've all gone through this. We've all gone through this. We all understand this. It is an emotional problem. It's an intellectual. It creates an intellectual problem, but more than an intellectual problem, it is a personal emotional problem. I remember when I was a pastor, I was still a pastor, and I was moved to Delhi. And I thought about it. I mean, the Google Photos has a way of reminding you about the past, right? And one of the images that came just this week, one of the videos that showed up in the Google Photos memory lane was my mother, who was kind of, we are meeting at my home. This was back in early, around 2011 or 2012, I think. And that's the last time she visited Delhi. And we are celebrating, I think, Sandeep's birthday. And we can see the signs. We can see, right? She had like a kind of a early dementia. She was bedridden for a long time, for 7 years. Anyway, so it was a tough journey for her. She passed away. But the image, the video kind of, I mean, she was lost. She was lost. She couldn't recognize us. She was gone. She was there physically, but we lost her emotionally, psychologically. It is a personal problem. So evil and suffering can be overwhelming and destabilizing. Right? So we see what suffering does. Now, let's quickly see, how do people cope with it? Okay, this is where I want you to just kind of open your backpack a little bit. Right? Open your backpack, the imaginary backpack, where we kind of make sense of these things. See how you make sense of it, right? And so the first way, the secular person, right? The secular person, what they do is they are able to see the intellectual problem and the emotional problem, and they conclude, because they don't see a reason why the suffering happens, they will reject God. And maybe that is true of some of us. We feel like, no, I don't see a reason. I don't know why my mom had to suffer that way. She's a good person. Why should I? I don't see a reason why that's helpful, why it's good. And so what do? We reject a good God. We reject the idea of God. I don't want to do anything with this God. Right? And that's a common way people cope with suffering. Maybe some of you are in that stage today, right? So that's one way we cope. Because I don't see a reason, we reject God. Second way people cope is through the idea of karma, right? It's very common in India, where suffering is a punishment. It's a punishment for your past sins, for your past life, right? And so in this world, if you are suffering, it's because you've done something in the past and you're paying for the sin, and so you need to pay for it, right? So you lead a good life today. Why? So that in the next life you will feel better. Right? And I want you to understand, it shapes culture. It shapes how we do certain things. Right? And one of the things, if you think about it, is in India, we want people to suffer a little bit. It comes from this idea of karma, right? Why? Because, hey, if I relieve you of your suffering, you are not paying for your sin, which means it will impact your future life. Right? And so that's why we let people suffer. Why? It's justice. It's a form of personal justice to pay for it, so that you can actually lead a better life. Right? So it is ingrained in the system. That's why even when you go to the doctor, right? Quick note: if you go to the doctor, they won't give you enough pain medication. They want you to suffer a little bit. Right? They don't want to give. No. They won't give you. They're like, no. For me, they give you a child's dose of pain medication. I'm still in pain. They won't give it. Why? Oh, suffering is okay. A little bit of suffering is okay, right? Uh, that comes from this idea, no, you're paying. God is punishing you. You have to pay for it, which means in the next life you'll be better, right? So how do you pay for it? By doing good to people, by living a good life. Some of us cope like that, right? The third way people generally cope is this. We see this in the idea of Buddhism, right? In this idea where suffering, Ranjit, suffering is not. It is not a punishment. It is not. You've not done anything wrong. Suffering is basically the gap between your desires, your desires and the unfulfilled desires, right? That is not fulfilled. It's not satisfied. It's the gap. The gap is the one that's suffering, right? And so how do you process suffering? How do you process? What do you do? What is the solution for suffering, right? Suppress your desire. You manage your desire, you manage your expectation, you will not suffer, right? So the solution is detach yourself. It's very common in India. Detach yourself, right? And suppress your desire, you will lead a happy life. Right, but think about this, and it is true. It is how it plays out. We see this in parenting. We see this in India, right, where you may love the child, but the religious philosophy will tell you, no, love the child, but don't love the child too much, because one day the child will leave, or one day you will lose the child, right, and so you will get hurt, right, and so our parenting style is be very detached. Don't say you love, don't express love, right? Just be little detached, right, so that you are not disappointed. Okay. And lastly, it's a very common Indian view, is the fatalistic view, right? The idea of fate. It's been determined, it's been written, right? Sometimes we have the imagery, it's written on your forehead and all of that, right? It's written. Your suffering is written. It's not your fault. It's not your desire. It's basically written and determined that you suffer. So what do? You have to accept and endure. Okay? These are common contours of how people, and we may have a little flavor of something, right? So I want to challenge you, right? So the secular modern mindset says, no, since I don't have a reason, I reject God. That's the way we cope with it. The idea of the karmic kind of view is that, no, it is a punishment, so which means I go through suffering by doing good to people, so the next life I'll be better. Right, this idea of the Buddhist idea is that, no, it is because of my desire, so I'm going to detach myself and suppress my desire to deal with my suffering, right? Or the fatalistic view that says that, no, it is written, it's determined, it's not your fault, it's just written, you just have to endure it. How do you cope? What is in your backpack? Right? How do you make sense of suffering? How do you make sense of the world? All right, we've seen what suffering does. We've seen how the world copes. Lastly, what Jesus offers. And this is where we want to slowly, if you're visiting with us, I'm so glad you've come. I want to introduce this idea of what Jesus offers. And oftentimes we come up with this kind of common phrase that, no, all roads lead to Rome, every religious philosophy the same. It is not. I'm going to introduce you to the scriptural view of how the Bible takes a very different view of suffering, right? What Jesus offers. And we recognize suffering is one of the greatest arguments against God, right? It's called theodicy, right? There's no answer, no reason that can come up with can actually solve the problem. And the Bible is very clear about it. The Bible never gives us a reason, right? It talks about contra, but it never gives us a reason. We don't know why. But I want to suggest to you what the Bible offers, what Jesus offers. Jesus offers you tremendous resource for suffering, more than any of the other ways you've coped up with, right? Maybe you're coping in different ways and you've tried to manage this. And I want to just introduce how Jesus can offer something much more meaningful and robust when it comes to suffering. Right here, scripture says in verse 8, right, in chapter 4, 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 8, it says, this is Paul's circumstance. He says, we are afflicted in every way, perplexed, persecuted, struck down, right? This could be your situation. He's going through suffering, right? He's going through suffering, and you can feel the same. You're probably feeling afflicted in every way. You're feeling perplexed and confused by it. You feel persecuted and oppressed by it. You feel struck down emotionally, psychologically, spiritually. You feel like you're struck down. But then he says, we are not crushed by it. We are not driven to despair. We are not forsaken. We are not destroyed. How is it possible, right? How is this possible? And that is what scripture gives. That is what God, the God of the Bible, can give you a resource where you can be persecuted, but you are not crushed. You can be perplexed, but you are not driven to despair. You can be persecuted, but not forsaken. You can be struck down, but you are not destroyed. That is the resource Jesus offers. How does he do this? How does he do this? And this is where we begin to understand, right? And I want to just help you understand the biblical hope. The biblical hope is not a compensation for your suffering. Okay, every other kind of religious philosophy says, no, you've suffered so much. If you lead a good life, then you will actually have a better life. You will go to paradise. You'll go to suffering will end. Right, the world is all Maya. It's okay. You right. So no. It is the biblical hope is not a compensation. The biblical hope is not a consolation for you. The biblical hope is a restoration. It's a restoration of all things. And I want you to understand, and I know in the short time it's hard to kind of think about this, but I want you to understand, no other religious philosophy gives you this. The biblical hope is not a consolation or a compensation for your suffering. It is a restoration. It is a promise of restoration of all things. How does it happen? 3 ways. 1, Jesus offers a resurrection. Jesus offers a resurrection, right? This is incredible. Verse 14, it says, knowing that he who raised the Lord Jesus will also raise us with Jesus and bring us with you into his presence. Just as how Jesus was raised, when we place our faith in Jesus, we are promised a resurrection. Jesus offers your resurrection. And you're wondering, why is that helpful? What is that? No. In the resurrection, everything that is ruined, everything that is broken, everything everything is made whole. It is renewed and restored. It is not just gone. It is not just wiped away. It is not just like forgotten. No. It is renewed. It is restored. Every tear, your tear is not in vain. It is restored. Your prayer and your longings is not in vain. Jesus promises to restore it. To restore it to what it means. This is the biblical hope. 1 Corinthians 15:54 says, death is swallowed up in victory. Right? Death is not the end of suffering. No. Death is victory. It is swallowed up in victory because of the resurrection. He promises to make all things new. Make all things new. Right? Your suffering is not in vain. There is meaning. Your trial is not in vain. Your sorrow is not in vain. Right? Everything that you experience in your body and your emotion, Jesus says, I will restore it. I will restore it. I will restore it. Resurrection is not a consolation. It's a restoration of all things. Jesus offers resurrection. Right? Think about this. I want you to think about this. And one of the theologians talks about this idea of dying. This idea of the death is like a nightmare, right? And imagine you have a strange nightmare. Nightmare where you are shaken, you feel like man alive, you're losing your family, you're losing your kids, it's really shaken, something is attacking or whatever that is, you wake up and it feels so real. Have you had nightmares like that? Right? Jesus, Deepa oftentimes wakes me up and she's like, are you still here? Yeah, I'm like, please go to bed, right? Yeah. Right? So we are shaken, right? And then you realize, oh no, it's just a dream. Right? But you're not like, oh, it's just a dream. It's okay. I'll have another family. I'll have another set of kids. No. You want to go meet your kids. You want to go meet your family. And when you see them, there is an intense love. There's an intense love. You hug them and you feel a sense of belonging. You're not like, no, this nightmare is it's okay. It's gone. I'll have a new set of family. No, that's not what you say. This is what Jesus says. No. When you die, there is a resurrection. There is a resurrection. There's a resurrection. He's going to restore. He's going to renew this earth and the heaven. This is what Jesus offers. This is what Jesus offers, right? So your suffering is not in vain. Secondly, Jesus not only offers a resurrection, Jesus offers his presence. Jesus offers his presence. And I want you to understand this. There's no other religious philosophy talks about these things, right? And this is a unique resource for you. When you have faith in Jesus, every religious philosophy tries to come up with some kind of reason, right? Some kind of answer when you suffer. Only the God of the Bible says, no. There is no reason. I'm not going to give you the reason, but I will send my son into this world. I'm going to send my son. I'm not going to sit up there and give you a reason. I'm going to send my son. Jesus came into this world and he suffered. He suffered. And my friend, this is where, right? This is where I want you to pause and I want you to think about this. There's something about suffering that is so mysterious where God says, no, the only way I'm going to show my love to you and the only way I'm going to rescue you and resurrect you is when I come and I suffer and die. Right? If God could just snap his fingers and then suffering goes away, do you think he won't do it? You think he won't take that option? It is mysterious. It is mysterious. The only way we are able to conclude is no, God allows suffering is not because he is not good, not because he doesn't care, not because he doesn't love. No, he deeply cares. He is good. He deeply loves to the extent that he sends his son to suffer and die. Right? Jesus suffers and dies. See, when you go through suffering, you don't need a nice WhatsApp message. You don't need a nice Bible verse. You don't need somebody to tell you. You need somebody to stay with you. And Jesus offers that. Jesus says, I will be with you. I will be with you. Jesus offers himself to you. He offers himself to you. Why? How is that comforting? He went through all of the suffering you face. All of the suffering. I want you to think about this, right? No, he's not a philosopher who came to you, right? He's not a nice teacher, right? Who when you're suffering, the teacher is giving you some nice advice. He's not like a philosopher who's trying to kind of, let's think about this, let's think of all the reasons. No. Jesus understands. Why? He understands your pain. He understands your tears. He understands your cry. Why? God suffered in Jesus. He suffered. My friend, it is a tremendous resource. You can go to a God, the God you think who's giving you the answer. No. Here is a God who says, no, I am with you. I understand your pain. He offers his presence. We see this in Daniel chapter 3. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they are thrown into the fiery furnace and the flames are about to consume them. The king is watching and he's saying, no, they're going to die in a bit. And suddenly he realizes there is a fourth person. He threw three people into the fire. There's a fourth person. And the king says, it looks like the Son of God. It looks like the Son of God. Right? Jesus shows up in your flood and in your fire. He shows up. He promises his presence for his people when you trust him. He's with you. Right? The reason why Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, the reason why they could survive some of these things is why? Because Jesus offered himself at the ultimate furnace so that you can be rescued. Right? We see this in John chapter 11. Jesus weeps at the Lazarus' tomb. And then Jesus was able to resurrect. He rose again. Right? The reason why Lazarus could rise again was because Jesus could put himself inside the grave for you. He suffered. My friend, I want you to understand, no other religious philosophy talks about a God who is suffering. It's anathema. It is beyond. No. You cannot talk about a God who suffers. The Bible talks about a God who was He brutally suffered for you. Ranjit, why? Why did he suffer? Why is that important? My friend, the cross is the only thing that can make sense of suffering. It doesn't give you the reason. But the cross is the only place where you can make sense of suffering. And let me tell you this. I'm watching this, finishing the show called the Pan Am, right? The Pan Am Lockerbie bombings. I don't know if you know, it's in Netflix. It's about a kind of a historical event that happened, I want to say in 1988, I think, right? So back 40 years back, there were some kind of bomb placed in the airline and the airline exploded. Close to 250 people died. Right? And that incident, the Lockerbie incident, completely shaped the way airline industry works today. Right? If you're wondering what are they doing about checking your airbag, how do they have security, what are they doing? It's all from that. Right? Those families fought. The families that lost their children fought to bring in changes worldwide about how security happens. Right? And so it's a documentaries presentation of that whole thing. Right? And so in that, it's a 10-year case. The families who've lost, the 250 people who died, all their families are longing for justice. They're longing for 10 years to find the culprit. And finally, they bring the person to the court, right? Two people, they bring two guys to the court in the Swiss court, I think the Scottish court. And so they bring him before the court. And so the families are talking, right? It's very poignant. It's very, very sad. The families are talking. They're saying, well, two guys have come. This is going to be justice. Two guys are finally caught. There's going to be justice. But one of the family members say, but why doesn't it feel good? Why doesn't it feel good? Right? And another person says, no, this is what needs to happen. I don't want these two guys to die. I mean, there is a whole network of people who actually planned this. I want everybody to be caught. This is not just the work of two people. This is everybody needs to die. Everybody needs to be punished. Right? So no amount of reason, the injustice and the suffering you face, no, it is not by the payment of one person. It is not by the payment of two people. It is not by the payment of 100 people. Nothing can quench your thirst for injustice. Nothing can heal your heart. No amount of violence, no amount of bloodshed. And ultimately, you are sitting here, and when you face that kind of an injustice, when you face that kind of suffering in life, and you look at God and you say, nothing will satisfy me, you need to pay. You need to pay. And he did. And he did. Jesus died on the cross. Not because he sinned, for the sins of mankind. He died for the injustice that has been caused against you. He is paying for it. The longing for justice in your heart and the suffering and the abuse you face, and you say, I want somebody to pay. Nobody in the world can pay for that. Nobody. And you look at God and you want him to pay. My dear friend, he paid for it. He hung on the cross. But not only for the injustice against you, for all your injustice, for all your injustice, he paid. He paid. My friend, this is the only place, the Bible is the only place where we don't make sense of suffering, and I don't have the reason for suffering, but Jesus offers himself. He offers himself. He says, I will be with you in your suffering. I will be with you. When you come to Jesus, he doesn't promise that he will take away your suffering. No, he promises, in your suffering, I will be with you. In your suffering, you're not abandoned. You're not alone. You don't have to make things. No, I will be with you in your suffering. Lastly, right, Jesus offers a resurrection. Jesus offers his presence. Lastly, Jesus offers his glory to you. Right? What does that mean? Look at verse 16. He says, do not lose heart. Though your outer self is wasting away, your inner self is being renewed day by day. For this light and momentary affliction is preparing for us a greater eternal weight of glory beyond all comparison. What is this? What is this talking about? No, my friend, suffering can make you, listen, suffering can make you bitter and angry and cynical and depressed. Suffering does that. Suffering will make you isolated in life. Suffering will make you stop loving. It will make you stop loving. You don't want to love anybody when you're suffering. No, you don't want to love anybody. You don't want to serve anybody. No, you want to be isolated. Oh, that is what suffering does. But Jesus gives you a resource. Because of the hope of the resurrection, because of the promise of his presence, it completely changes how you look at suffering today. He doesn't say you'll be happy all the time. No, that's not what Jesus says. But no, in your suffering, because you know Jesus is with you, Jesus promises, in your suffering, I am with you. And in your suffering, you will be like me. You will be like me. When you hold on to Jesus and when you know that he paid the ultimate price for you, he hung on the cross for you, and when that becomes real, you begin to understand he did not abandon you on the cross. He doesn't abandon you in life. He gives you the resource to be like him in your suffering. You can be patient. You can be kind. You can endure. Why? Jesus is with you. His hope is with you. You don't have to be cynical. You don't have to be angry. You don't have to look at life bitter. You don't have to be unhappy and anxious. No. You can rest. You can rest. You can rest. You can rest. My friend, Jesus offers a tremendous resource for suffering. And I hope even through this, you're able to slowly question, what is it? What is the one that helps you cope with suffering? And would you consider what the Bible has to say? My friend, again, Jesus does not promise to remove your suffering. The Bible doesn't give you a reason why suffering happens, but here is what Jesus offers. Jesus offers that when you suffer, he is with you. You're not alone. And when you suffer, you can be like him, sharing in his glory. And one day, he will restore all things. It's not a consolation, it's a restoration. Let's pray.